She covers the Denver Broncos, Las Vegas Raiders, and then USC Trojans. And she's well respected in the sports industry, one of the best in my opinion. And I'm really looking forward to this interview. And first of all, Kim, how are you and your family doing during this tough situation?
Yeah, doing well, just taking it a day at a time, just trying to count our blessings and look at it in a positive light. Hopefully there's a light at the end of the tunnel here coming soon. But yeah, just one day at a time.
So my first question to you is, when did you get interested in the sports industry, and who was your biggest influencer in that?
Oh, geez. Well, I actually performed with Disney on Ice for 10 years.
Oh,
And when I was doing that, I was in charge of a lot of our media stuff for several years. So I knew that I really enjoyed doing that. I coordinated a lot of different PR events and did a lot of on-screen interviews and live interviews also when we would go to different cities to perform. So I always knew that I wanted to do something in the media. I really liked being in front of the camera. I really liked telling stories and talking to people. So that was kind of where it started. And then I've always just been really into sports. Obviously, I grew up as a competitive figure skater. My dad played for the Chicago Bears, so we were a huge
oh
football
wow.
family growing up. I have two brothers, so we were just watching football, our whole childhood. And so I knew I kind of wanted to combine both of those passions, sports and media, and just kind of fell into my lap here.
So before we get to your skating on ice and actually Disney on ice, who is your biggest inspiration or role model while growing up in the sports industry?
Yeah, growing up in the sports industry, I don't know if I really had necessarily a sports broadcaster in mind, but just looking at athletes and how much they prepare and how much they play. I had a lot of ice skaters that I really looked up to, Sasha Cohen, Michelle Kwan, just girls who had a lot of dedication and a lot of discipline in their practice. And I think that that's something that translated over to my work ethic because I was so disciplined with skating. It, allowed me to have a really strong work ethic and wanting to really go for my goals. So they kind of inspired me that way. But then in the last 2 years, when I really started getting into sports journalism, Jenny Taft is a
Yeah.
huge role model for me. We actually have some mutual friends, and so I've actually got to meet with her a couple times, and
Nice.
she mentored me a little bit. I interned up at Fox Sports in LA and got to shadow her, and I shadowed Rachel Bonetta, she's also awesome,
Yeah.
and I really look up to her. She's got such an awesome personality, and they're just so fun and so natural and so talented. So those two are really probably the two that I look up to the most right now.
Speaking of Jenny Taft, I always watch the Undisputed show every morning. I love it. Skip and Shannon,
Yeah.
they go at it, and I love their entertainment. And I reached out to all three of them to come on the podcast, but obviously it's tough right now for them. They're busy, and
So
but they're
busy.
well respected. And for me, you remind me of Aaron Andrews, the way you go.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Wow. Well, thank
yeah,
you.
no, the way you go about your work and the way you report stuff, especially for NFL teams
Oh.
and USC Trojans, you do definitely remind me of Aaron Andrews. That's how good you are.
Well, that's a huge honor. Thank you. I have a long way to go before I could even compare myself to her, but I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I want to get to your Disney on Ice career first. What was the process like in that? And obviously, it takes a lot of time to prepare, especially performing in front of fans. But what was that like, and what was that experience like? Just working with those cast workers and just getting those shows prepared.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, live entertainment is its own world, especially in this industry. That live entertainment with skating really helped me prepare for just kind of, doing things on the fly, rolling with the punches. There's obviously going to be things that happen that don't go as planned, and you just kind of have to know how to take it as it is and accept it and be really agile when it comes to those things. So when it comes to live entertainment with Disney on Ice, that was a huge benefit for me, especially going into this next career path. But I skated my entire life. I loved it. I was competitive. I had coaches that knew that I would really like performing. And so when I graduated high school, I auditioned and I got a spot right away and went when I was 18. So I joined my first tour when I was 18, and I was only going to do it for 1 year.
Mm.
And 10 years later, I was still doing it. I loved it so much. I got the opportunity to travel all over the world. I've performed in 45 countries. I was in Europe for 5 years, Japan, Southeast Australia for year. So it was an awesome opportunity for me to travel and to do what I loved and, see the world while doing it, which is huge. Not many people get that opportunity. So I feel very lucky in that. And then all of the media stuff along with it that I was able to do and got opportunity and really prepared me a lot for what I'm doing now and for what I'm really excited to do in my future. So everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer in that. I think it really prepared me, and I wouldn't regret it. Don't regret it for anything. I wouldn't give it up for the world.
Yeah, so for now, transitioning from that to the sports broadcasting world, how do you balance all this out? Do you like how often do you cover each team? Like for example, the Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders to the USC Trojans. So how often do you bounce from team to team when they ask you to for coverage?
Yeah, I started out posting video with Sports Illustrated for the Raiders and the Broncos first. And so I was, pretty much just paying attention to NFL. It's really fun to cover both teams because I grew up in Denver, Colorado. So I'm actually a huge Broncos fan.
Oh, wow.
And that rivalry is huge, right? Like
Yeah.
the Raiders and Broncos rivalry. So a lot of my family and friends, when I let them know I was going to be covering the Raiders, they were like, excuse me, like that is not a thing. That's not allowed. So that's been really fun. And I've gained a lot of respect for the Raiders, especially just growing up, assuming that they were our rivals. But now, kind of watching the games and watching the players and listening to their interviews and the way that they respect each other and work with each other. I mean, they're just another football team. They love what they do. They're super passionate, they're hardworking, and they go out there and they just want to play the game. And that's what I love about football so much is these guys are just so passionate about it. And I think that helps me with the balance because I'm so passionate about what I'm doing also in the sports broadcasting world, and seeing how passionate they are about their own jobs and about their lives really helps me balance it out because it's just something I'm interested in. So it doesn't feel like work, it doesn't feel like, oh, I have to get up and I have to watch these games or I have to listen to these press conferences or read articles. It's all things that I really enjoy. And I think that helps with the balance just because it's something that I look forward to. Like when I finish one thing, I'm looking forward to the next thing, to the next team, to the next game. So it's enjoyable, which makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, so speaking of, before we go any further, I gotta ask you about your father, if you don't mind. But
Sure.
so, did he get to play underneath Coach Mike Ditka back in the day, or?
So he did not. He played 79, 80, and 81. So it was, quite a while ago, much before I was born. And he didn't get to play a lot. He was a safety, but they did cut him after a few seasons. But he played at the University of Iowa as well. So he loved the game also, and knows so much about it. Watching games with him is so fun, and along with my brothers because they just know the ins and out of everything. So I get to listen to them and learn from them. But he did play with Walter Payton, which is
Oh, wow.
definitely the
Yeah.
highlight of his career. Yeah.
That's awesome. That whenever you get to play with Walter Payton or play against him, that's when your career is amazing because
Yeah,
Walter Payton left a big mark on the NFL. So that's
definitely.
amazing.
Made it
But
all worth it for him for sure.
yeah, but I gotta ask you. So for a sports journalist, how tough was it when? So for example, when before the pandemic, I know you guys were covering a lot of sports in there, but when the sports shut down, how tough is it? How tough was it for you guys when you heard that all these sports are shutting down and you guys had to um, pivot to a different direction where you got to stay home now and cover these report from the house, and eventually sports are coming back now. But what was that like though when the sports were shutting down?
Yeah, I was kind of in a different situation there because I was actually still in school. So I skated with Disney on Ice for 10 years, right after high school, and then I went back to college. So I had never been to college. I had never gotten my degree. So when I quit skating, I was 28 years old, and I decided that I wanted to start this new career path in sports journalism. So a little humble brag that you're never too old to start a new career path and to do
Yeah.
something else that you love. So I went back to school. Well, I went to school initially at 28 years old. I had taken some online classes, so I did have a couple years under my belt with that, but I was able to go to school in Orange County and get my degree over the last 2 years in sports broadcasting. So I was interning up at Fox Sports in LA when the pandemic hit. So that obviously got canceled with everything, but I wasn't actually reporting on any teams or live games or anything like that when the whole pandemic did initially start. So I was kind of in a different ballgame there. I obviously went home, and that's when I started looking for jobs. And the Sports Illustrated thing happened a few months after the pandemic started, and that's when I started covering games and whatnot. So I've been doing everything from home, everything on Zoom, but I am now helping cover USC for Sports Illustrated. So I will be going to the game on Sunday. So it'll be a little bit different there, obviously in the press box, very socially distanced and only a few people there covering the team. But yeah, so I've been doing everything from home. So that's kind of how I started, was from home. So it's not much different from me.
So I got to ask you this. So what's it like covering two teams in the same division? And what do your friends say about it? And obviously these two teams are in different directions right now. Obviously Raiders are up and rising, and Broncos are still rebuilding. But I got to ask you about the debacle they had last week with no quarterback. But they shout out to Hinton, by the way, from a practice squad receiver, just to go get in there and play the game, right? So
huge shout out. So much respect for him. Oh my gosh. I told my whole family I want a Kendall Hinton jersey for Christmas. I will wear it for the rest of my life. So much respect for that guy.
But yeah, so what's it like just covering these two teams in the same division? And obviously you're a Broncos fan, but what does your friend say about it though?
Yeah, it's funny because I'll post a bunch of, Raiders videos, and then I'll also post Broncos videos, and people ask me, they're like, how can you be doing both teams? This doesn't make any sense. But for me, it does make sense because I just love football so much, and it's a job, right? Like I'm covering teams and I'm covering football as my job and as my career goal. And it is a game, and they're all just trying to play their games and to win their games and to get better and to improve and to work on their skill and to hone their craft. And that's exactly what I'm doing as well, is just working on my goals and honing my craft. And so it's kind of parallel in that sense. And of course, it's crazy to cover the Broncos and the Raiders. Like when they played a couple weeks ago, I mean, it was interesting because I was watching it, and deep down, I wanted the Broncos to win, but I knew they weren't going to. And so then when the Raiders did win, I was like, okay. And, my family's like, what? Like, aren't you so upset that the Broncos just lost? But I'm like, well, now I got to go talk about the Raiders wins. So, I mean, it's kind of a give and take kind of thing. But, yeah, the Raiders are doing really well. Well, they are still doing really well. They had a rough game on Sunday, but still doing much better than the Broncos are this season. So that's kind of been fun.
I mean, you guys have a better record. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, so you guys are, it's a rough year for us, and you guys have a better record than us, by the way, I think.
Yeah. Derek Carr's been on fire. Yeah. The offense has been awesome on the Raiders. The defense still needs some work, but the offense really, they've had a lot of good connection skills up until this last Sunday, of course, but that's okay. One game's okay. Well, it's out of their system and then on to the next.
No, like your I think your Broncos have a better record than my Cowboys right now, I think, right?
Oh, the Broncos have a better record. I was going to say, yeah, the Raiders for sure do, but the Broncos do. You're right. And they didn't have any quarterbacks last weekend. So.
Yeah, but speaking of the Broncos, though, there was some other reports out there that they were trying to get one of their staff people to join to play that game. How come the NFL didn't give them that leeway or leverage to reschedule the game, or at least give them a chance to see what other option? Because they're giving they gave the Ravens so many opportunities to play the game. How come they didn't give it to the Broncos? I'm still concerned about that.
Yeah, that's kind of been the topic of conversation over the last week. I haven't heard anything directly from the NFL, of course. I don't think that they've come out and said exactly what the situation is. I know that there's a lot of different decision-making going into deciding whether or not a game is going to get rescheduled or get canceled or postponed, forfeited, whatever it may be. There's a lot of factors to it. But I know the speculation was just from different things that I read, different articles, different posts on Twitter and whatnot, is that because the quarterbacks went in on their day off to watch the film and they had their masks down at a point, it didn't go against the COVID-19 regulations that the NFL does have in place. So I think, and essentially they were kind of like, well, the quarterbacks made the mistake, so we can't cancel the game because it's not going against, or it's not following COVID-19 protocols for the NFL. But that's just kind of the tough conversation that everyone's been having over the last week, because then you see the Ravens with multiple positive tests, and the Broncos essentially only had Jeff Driscoll test
Yeah.
positive. The other three quarterbacks, they all tested negative. So it's that gray area. I think, they're just trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. And it's such a crazy year and such a crazy situation in the league and in college and everything obviously going on that I don't know. I don't think there's really a black and white answer, and I don't think we're ever going to get one.
So after the game, did you get to speak to Coach Evangio? And if you did, what did he say about that situation?
Yeah, no, I didn't speak. I don't speak to the coaches. I just speak with the other writers and reporters within Sports Illustrated, and kind of they are a couple of them able to listen to the press conferences, but
Yeah.
I was not on that press conference. But did talk to those reporters, and Vic Fangio just said that what he told other reporters and in the press conferences that he was just disappointed that the quarterbacks put them in that position and did put the team at risk of playing a game without an entire position group, which is exactly what happened. But, it's the discipline and it's the nature of the league right now and the nature of this pandemic. And it's something that, again, they're just all trying to figure out and kind of roll with. So it is what it is. It happened. It was a huge bummer. But again, respect to Kendall Hinton for jumping in there. And I mean, they didn't lose. They lost 31-3. But if you go back and look at the, Buccaneers Saints game a couple of weeks ago, I think that was like 38-3. So Tom Brady did worse.
No, but you should. I'm sure you definitely gonna. Are you definitely gonna get that jersey? That you should get that jersey.
I really think I'm going to. Yeah, I'm gonna put it at the top of my Christmas list.
Yeah. So this is a two-part question. Outside of the negatives, what are some positives that you like about the Broncos roster and the way they're building? And obviously they have Drew Lock. I love Drew Lock. I think that's a future quarterback. And you got weapons. Jerry Jeudy, I love him as a receiver. And you guys have a lot more weapons. So what are some positives that you like about the Broncos roster and some positives you like about the Raiders roster? And do you think the Raiders can make a playoff run?
Yeah, no, for sure. Good questions. The Broncos, yes, exactly like you said. I think they're just still rebuilding. I know it's kind of been a long rebuilding process. They haven't won the Super Bowl or even gotten really close since 2015 when they had Peyton Manning. And ever since then, they've really just been trying to get that quarterback to become a leader and get an offense that is dynamic and that can work and is smooth. And I think that they're on their way. But the positives definitely being Drew Lock. I think that he's gotten a lot of shade thrown at him this year. There's been a lot of kind of negative stuff going on around him and about him. And I think that he's pretty good at just kind of brushing it off to the side and just focusing on what he is there to get done. But the negatives is injuries, and with so many teams across the league, but especially the Broncos, they have suffered from so many injuries. I mean, obviously Von Miller on the defense before the season even started, that was huge. And I think even just knowing that mentally that they weren't going to have Von Miller just kind of made them not as confident and not as optimistic. And then obviously it just continued throughout the season. It was like, one after another, Cortland Sutton, Fant. I mean, it just kept going. So, I think that that's their downfall this season is definitely injuries, but hopefully next year will be a different story. We'll get back to a normal season. They'll have off season. They'll have normal practices. None of this COVID-19 stuff, fingers crossed, and hopefully they will come in stronger. So I do think you're right with that. They're just rebuilding, and I think they're just getting started. But the Raiders, again, I think the offense has just been so on point this year. I think Coach Gruden is highly respected, and he knows exactly what he's doing, and he's very well connected with Derek Carr, and Derek Carr is well connected with his receivers. And again, I think they have some work to do on their defense, but their offense has been killing it. And Derek Carr is cool, calm, and collected. And, I don't think that he's coming out too cocky or anything, which I think is a good thing for them. They're just staying kind of, keeping their head down and going into a new stadium, a new city this season. And I do think that they will make the playoffs. I think last week was, a one-off. I don't think it's going to happen again, hopefully.
Yeah. So before we transition to USC, I actually interviewed two legend Broncos on my show way back. Carl Meckenberger and I had Rod Smith on. They were former Broncos on the show, and I think they told me that sometimes they go back to see the Broncos team, and obviously one of them, I think they were in the Ring of Honor. So I was just honored to speak to both of them.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. That's so fun, especially to talk to them now, after watching their team develop over so many years and with so many different players and situations. I'm sure they have some cool things to say.
Yeah. So for USC Trojan, what's it like covering that team, and what do you like about this team this year for college football?
Yeah, this has been really fun for me. I've just been covering USC for the last month. So it's been a huge learning experience for me. Obviously, college football is very different from the NFL. I've been a huge NFL girl growing up.
Yeah.
I was definitely into college football, but I hadn't paid close attention to USC specifically. So just, growing up in Colorado, I was more of paying attention to CU, CSU, Colorado, and Colorado State. So being here in Orange County now and covering USC has been awesome. I am able to, listen in on some of the press conferences and listen to the coaches speak and a couple players that they have on. And again, it's just such a bummer with all of their COVID-19 stuff because their restrictions are obviously a lot tighter. And USC did get their game canceled last week against CU that I was supposed to attend. So that was a big bummer and such a bummer for the kids because they want to go out there and play. They're still in their prime and they're trying to make it in the big league and, really make a name for themselves on their team, on the Trojans team, and just play with each other. The highlight of their school career right now is playing football because they're not able to attend class in person. So being able to see that emotional side of it and kind of that personal side of college football has been really special in an unfortunate way, but something that I'll always remember. And I think something that has, improved that side of my coverage as well. And just knowing what to look for and what that people are really interested in right now, because this pandemic is affecting all of us, but in a sense, it's also bringing us together because we're all going through it and it's all kind of, affecting us negatively in certain ways. And so it's a special thing to see these kids, deal with it and how mature they are and how much they're growing through it. I try to think of myself, if I would have been their age going through this, I would have been throwing fits. So I'm really impressed with the way that they're handling everything.
So a couple more things here before I let you go. So what's it like now seeing, obviously in this generation it's all about connecting and networking. That's a big thing. So what's it like for yourself connecting with all these other sports journalists in the industry and obviously seeing and then connecting with podcasters like me and the other shows you've been on? What's it like just seeing us utilizing each platforms and you can already tell that I don't give up on the guests. I message.
No, you don't. And I'm impressed. And don't ever give up. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, but so what's it like just seeing this connect, like the world connecting now and utilizing these platforms, starting podcasts are a big thing now. So
huge. Yeah, they're huge and they're super beneficial. And I actually took a social media journalism class my last semester of school, and I didn't want to take it, but I took it, and I am so glad that I did because it opened my eyes to a whole new world. Growing up over the last 10 years while I was skating, social media wasn't really a huge thing like where I was. And we used it to post pictures of, my travels and whatnot, but never to make connections like this and to network and to jumpstart a career. And I think it's an awesome tool right now. So many people are on social media. So many people go straight to social media for their first response news these days. People aren't sitting watching the television, an example this morning, I live in Orange County, like I said, and there was a wildfire like in the canyon just right next to my house. And so I walked outside this morning and I saw it, and I went straight onto Twitter just to see where it was, if I needed to evacuate, whatnot. And before I turned the news on and there was nothing there. So I got all my news from Twitter. And so I think that you guys doing this and, getting on Twitter, getting on Instagram Live, podcasts, and connecting and making these connections is the best way to grow in any industry, and especially this one. And I actually did the same thing when the pandemic started and I was sitting at home. I just cold emailed a bunch of different teams, a bunch of different people that I had met, and talked to them and asked for advice. And they actually suggested, another person to talk to, and this person suggested another one, and then just became this web of connections. And it's actually how I eventually got my stuff on the desk of Sports Illustrated. So I'm eternally grateful for that. And I recommend it to anyone trying to get into this business and anyone just trying to grow in any career, is to definitely make connections. It's all about who you know. It's all about what you can learn from people who have been in this industry. I've learned so much just by asking questions and doing what you're doing right now too, just reaching out to people and, and not giving up and knowing that everyone's busy, but like they want to talk about it and they will talk about it. And everyone has, paid it forward to me so much over the last 6 months. So I'm hoping that I can do the same.
Yeah. Is Sports Illustrated hiring, by the way?
That's a good question. I have no idea. I'm not the person to ask, but if I find out, I'll let you know.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And the last two things here before you go, obviously this is an important topic that everybody should be talking about, women in sports. So what's it like for you seeing yourself and all these other women like Jenny Taft or Erin Andrews, Laura Rutledge is another great one.
I love Laura Rutledge too, yeah.
Yeah. So and all these other women reporters are getting the chances to do the things they love, and also women coaching male sports like Becky Hammond, and then we're seeing a lot of firsts today with a lot of firsts this year with like a first female GM in baseball, first female white vice president. So what's it like seeing all this now happening?
It's amazing. I mean, I don't really know how else to put it. It is so cool. I think that there was always a place for women in sports, but unfortunately it was just overshadowed by a lot of different things. And, you know, coming from someone who did spend a very large chunk of her life as a competitive athlete and then being able to, you know, do it for a career for 10 years, being able to skate professionally, I mean, without that sport, I wouldn't have done that and I wouldn't be who I am today. And sports really can mold all of us, whether you play it or whether you don't, whether you're a fan, whether you watch it, whether you analyze it and talk about, you know, analytics and stats and whatnot. It is just something that brings us all together. And it is something that can bring out the knowledge and the talent of people that they didn't know they have. And so seeing all these women do this is so, so cool. And it's so motivating. I just like know deep down in my body that I will always be in sports. It's something that I've always wanted to do. I want to do it for the rest of my life. And seeing all these other women open more avenues and open more opportunities for us is so cool. And I can't wait to just see it blossom from here.
Oh, I almost forgot. Sarah Fuller from Vanderbilt. What was that? What was that like seeing that on last Saturday? She was the first female to play in a Power 5 conference in college football, and she made that kickoff in the second half. And that was so inspiring to see, especially her parents in the game. What was that like?
So inspiring, and just so awesome to see everything leading up to that kickoff on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram. I mean, I didn't know her name. I didn't know who she was until, you know, the day before, and all of a sudden she was everywhere, and it's all I knew, and it's all I was reading about and all I was looking at. And she just became, I mean, she's now a name that everyone will always remember. And so I hope we have a lot more moments like that in the future.
I actually reached out to her and no answer yet. Hopefully she's busy.
I bet she's busy. She's probably got a lot of DMs in her inbox.
Sure. And the last thing here for you, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and essential workers right now?
Oh, thank you for giving me that opportunity. And yes, of course, you know, I was just talking to a friend last week about how they have been working tirelessly for 9 months now, almost 10 months, trying to come up with a vaccine, trying to come up with a cure, trying to take care of people that are in this awful state. And, you know, those patients that have had COVID-19 hit them in ways that it hasn't hit others. And I, you know, spent so many of those months just laying around watching TV, you know, watching Netflix, you know, writing emails here and there. And to think that like that drove me nuts. I can't imagine actually having to take care of like the human race for those months. So thank you so much, of course, to everybody on the front lines. And we are thinking about you endlessly day to day, and really just crossing our fingers that we don't have to keep doing this too long. But thank you to all of them. Yes.
Yeah, that's how I end my show all the time with all my guests. I give everyone the opportunity to say that, and they deserve it. They're real MVPs, and they deserve a pay raise for sure.
Oh my gosh, they deserve anything. They deserve the next 5 years off of vacation. I hope they can go wherever they want, sit on the beach, get food brought to them, whatever they want.
Yeah, but there it is, episode 626 with the talented sports journalist Kimberly Becker, who covers the Denver Broncos, Las Vegas Raiders, USC Trojans. She used to be Disney on Ice back in the day. Go follow her on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere. She's one of the best, in my opinion, in the business. Like I said, she's Erin Andrews 2.0. Keep up the great work. You're such an inspiration. Obviously, we're going to stay connected, and I would like to do a collab show with you one day, and that'd be awesome. And let me know what Sports Illustrated says, and you and your family stay safe.
Hey, anything's possible. I'll for sure let you know. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, anytime. All right.